All right, let's dive in. Today, we're unpacking some absolutely game-changing ideas from Morgan Housel's book, The Psychology of Money. We're going to see why being good with money has way less to do with how smart you are and everything to do with how you act. So, to kick things off, let's start with a story. It's a real-life riddle, actually, and it perfectly sets the stage for our main theme. When it comes to your finances, what you do is so much more important than what you know. Okay, so let me ask you a question. Who do you think is better with money? A high-flying executive with a Harvard degree or a quiet small-town janitor? I think the answer is going to surprise you. So, in one corner, you've got this finance executive, Ivy League education, the whole deal. And in the other, a guy named Ronald Reed, who spent his days fixing cars and sweeping floors. Seems like a no-brainer who's going to end up on top, right? Well, here's the twist. When Ronald Reed, the janitor, passed away back in 2014, he left behind a fortune of, get this, $8 million. This wasn't a lottery win or some rich uncle. Nope. He just saved what he could, consistently, and invested it patiently, letting the incredible power of compounding do its thing for decades. And this is where it all clicks. See, Housel points out that we teach finance like it's physics, full of fixed rules and formulas. But in the real world, it's all about psychology. Ronald Reed didn't need a fancy degree. He just mastered the behavior of wealth. And that's the first huge mindset shift we've got to make. All right, let's build on that with our second big idea. We all want amazing returns on our investments, right? Of course. But we tend to forget that just like anything else you buy, those great returns come with a price tag. And it's probably not the price you're thinking of. The real price of investing isn't in commissions or trading fees. No, the price is the emotional roller coaster. It's the fear, the doubt, the uncertainty you feel when the market goes haywire. You got to think of it like the price of admission to a theme park. You pay it for the chance to enjoy the ride and get the rewards. Let's make this real. Think about Netflix. If you'd invested early on, man, you'd be unbelievably wealthy today. But could you have actually paid the price? In 2011 alone, the stock crashed 80%. 80! Imagine having to watch most of your money vanish. That sick to your stomach feeling, that is the price of admission. And this isn't just for some crazy tech stock. Even a safe S&P 500 fund has a really steep price. If you've been invested since 1980, you would have spent a total of 13 years with your portfolio down at least 20%. Could you really handle feeling like you're losing money for that long without bailing? So here's the real shift in thinking. Success isn't about trying to avoid the fee. You can't. It's about being willing and able to pay it when it comes due. Can you stomach the chaos without panicking? When you see volatility as a fee, not a fine, that's when you can stay in the game long enough to actually win. Okay, next up is a danger that actually gets bigger the more successful you become. Capitalism is an incredible engine for generating wealth. There's no doubt about it. But it's just as good at generating something else: envy. And that leads us right into the never enough trap, a game that's impossible to win. So let's climb what Housel calls the envy ladder. First rung, you've got a doctor making $500,000 a year. By almost any measure, this person is rich, successful, and should feel fantastic about it. But then they move into a new neighborhood, and their neighbor is a CEO pulling in $10 million a year. All of a sudden, that $500,000 salary doesn't feel so great anymore. The goalpost just moved. But surely that CEO is happy, right? Well, not so fast. Maybe they compare themselves to someone like Michael Jordan, whose net worth is in the billions. Suddenly, $10 million a year feels like chump change. You see where this is going? The comparison game is endless. And it just gets crazier from there. Even a billionaire icon might find themselves looking at someone who's worth hundreds of billions. There is always a bigger fish. This ladder has no top. So, how do you win this unwinnable game? You just stop playing. The hardest but most important financial skill is learning how to want less. It's about defining what enough means for you and refusing to let social comparison steal your joy. This next mindset is all about empathy. We're so quick to judge other people's financial choices as crazy, but what seems totally irrational to us might make perfect sense from their point of view, based on their own unique life experiences. For example, take lottery tickets. The data shows that the lowest income folks spend, on average, 4 times more on lottery tickets than the highest income folks.
Now, from a purely financial perspective, that seems nuts, right? Especially when so many people couldn't cover a $400 emergency.
But let's try to see it from their perspective. For someone who feels stuck with limited options, that lottery ticket isn't a financial investment. It's the purchase of hope. It's a tiny price to pay for a tangible dream of a completely different life. When you look at it that way, it's not so crazy after all.
All right, on to our last big idea. We humans are obsessed with forecasts. We want to know exactly what the market is going to do next. But history shows us over and over again that the events that really shape the world and our money are almost always a complete surprise. These surprises are what the author Nassim Taleb famously called black swans. They are these massive, high-impact events that nobody sees coming, but that everyone claims were obvious after the fact. And here's the key thing to remember. You can't predict them.
I mean, think about it. The 1987 crash, the 2008 financial crisis, the COVID-19 pandemic, pretty much no one reliably predicted these. The world is constantly shaped by massive surprises, which makes trying to predict the next one kind of a fool's errand. And there's a deep psychological reason we're so drawn to these gloomy predictions. As the great Daniel Kahneman explained, our brains are hardwired to pay way more attention to threats than to opportunities. Pessimism just sounds smarter because disasters happen suddenly and grab all the headlines, while progress happens slowly and quietly over time. So what's the big takeaway here? Instead of wasting your energy trying to predict the next storm, you should focus all that energy on building a financial boat that's strong enough to weather any storm. Things like a good savings rate, a diversified portfolio, and a truly long-term outlook, that's your life raft. So the ultimate question you have to ask yourself isn't, what's my prediction, but am I prepared to survive?